very important question today. Basically, critical topic of data integrity within the context of the quality culture. That's on which we are going to discuss. Data integrity lies at the heart of ensuring the safety, efficacy, and quality of the pharmaceutical product. It is essential that we uphold the highest standards when collecting, analyzing, and reporting data throughout the entire life cycle of a drug. So I think this is very important. Integrity is very important when we are talking about the drug quality, because if integrity is not there, that data is not reliable, and we can get into the different structure, and we will have the whatever data we have produced becomes unreliable, and nobody will give any importance to that data. So I think, but how it is in the collection relation to the context quality culture, that's what we have to see, and how what can be done and what can be explored needs to be seen from the perspective. There are a lot of current challenges, best practices, and innovative approaches to promote data integrity within the industry. So I think few questions. We have got one current regulator. I think Ian is here, who is a MHRA inspector, MHRA manager inspectors. Samantha is ex-regulator. She was on the MHRA. Now she is playing the role of the consultant with the NSF. We have got Jay Jariwala, who is another example of the ex-FDA inspector. Now he's rolled into the new role of the consultant in the Sydney probably. And two are the industry experts from this way. One is Amit Sarin and another is Kulkarni. So I think great panel to have this, because everybody has got some view on this. I think first question which I would like to ask each of you, actually, I will not restrict it to only one person. How do you define data integrity within the context of quality culture? What are the key elements does it entail to have? I think, Ian, we can start from you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you. I'll start and I'll dive straight in the interest of time. I think it would be wrong of me to start talking about data integrity without just making sure that we're referring to GMP Part 1 and Chapter 1. Then we need to talk about the GXP guide that the MHRA issued in 2018, and also for reference the PICS, good practices for data management and integrity. So that's the framework for data integrity. The MHRA, we've issued 5 blogs on the topic of data integrity. They go back to 2016. And I would encourage people to take the time to find those and to read them, because they all remain relevant today. So, and I think one of if I start with one of my key points, which I think data integrity, the guidance, the rules, the GMP rules, yes, that's within the regulator's remit to define those and to inspect against those. I think the quality culture, though, is very much for you and your company to define. This is about your ethos and how you establish your culture within your organization. So data integrity, it's obviously the prerequisite for GMP compliance, without which there is no effective pharmaceutical quality system. So your PQS is a reflection of your quality culture. We know that data integrity, that's the records, the record keeping, the checking, the reviewing of the information, the data at the manufacturing facility. But the culture really is the people, the philosophy, the welfare of the employees. And this is not something that's captured in a policy document. Doesn't sit in a manual in somebody's cupboard. This is really the heartbeat of the company. And one thing that I think that I always kind of in my head, I can't separate your quality culture from your safety culture. This is about your people and how you look after the people, how the people feel, the welfare of the people. And for me, the DI policies and practice on a daily level, they start when the personnel sign in at the gate and they finish when you sign out, when you leave the factory. But the culture of your organization, that's something that will stay with you. That's something you take home. You discuss over dinner with your family. You chat about it with your friends. That feeling of the company, you should be proud of the company that you work for. And that's what's captured within the quality culture. And like I say, that's not something that can be written down. The culture stays with you. The culture of the company, that should be embedded into your recruitment processes. So when you bring on board new talent, you introduce new people to your company, they should have been exposed to your quality culture through that recruitment process. And that's the first impression people get. That's what you want people to, you want people to want to work for your company from a quality perspective. And I think that's really important. So it really does set the tone for us in terms of our interactions. I think we can feel the quality culture from an inspectorate perspective, from an inspection and a regulator's perspective. When we're on site, we get a sense of the quality culture, and that for us then opens the door and says, actually, if we sense a poor quality culture, we get a sense that we'll find data integrity issues. There will be issues, because what that might lead to is the kind of fear of failure and behavioral issues, and that's the kind of red flag for the regulator. What we expect within a good sound quality culture is that mistakes do happen. They should be allowed to happen, but it really is then the focus on how do we eliminate, how do we stop those mistakes from happening again, and that is a challenge. We know that mistakes happen on a daily basis. That's life, that's real life, but it's how we accommodate that and how we take that forward and use that as opportunities to learn. Okay, I'll pause there now.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Samantha, do you have any comments on this? Anything more you want to speak about?
Indeed, thank you, Mr. Suresh. Really, really good to be able to join the panel today. So thank you for the invitation. So just a couple of reflection points, actually, just from what our regulatory colleague in Jackson has just mentioned. There is very much something about, I think, the organisation having an understanding of their quality culture, perhaps their desired quality culture. And yes, I agree, you can't write down what a culture is, but you can define perhaps what the ambitions are for your quality culture. Let us not forget that only a few months back, we heard Laura Squire, the current Chief Quality and Access Officer, saying compliance is a behaviour. We also know that the US FDA is going forward with QMM, which is all around quality culture. So yes, again, I agree with what Ian's saying about it being the heartbeat, but I think more work has to be done. And when it comes to data integrity, I would say that actually culture fully underpins data integrity. So it's really about what your culture is. Data integrity is perhaps a symptom, and data integrity issues are a symptom of poor quality. What I find also quite interesting is when you look at, for example, and I pick out the MHRA because obviously I used to work there, the definition for data integrity. And it starts with data integrity is the degree to which data are complete, consistent, accurate, trustworthy, and reliable. And it goes on, obviously, in a bit more detail. But let's take those words and just think about it for a moment. Complete, consistent, accurate, reliable. They're all quite tangible. They're measurable. They're sort of probably relatively easily monitored. But trustworthy, how do you make data trustworthy? And that comes down to culture. And this is what I mean about culture is really underpinning data integrity policies. So it's not really about defining the data integrity in the context of culture. For me, it's more around understanding your culture, which actually drives your performance around data integrity. And I think managing your culture, and we'll come on obviously to talk about this a lot more, is so multifaceted. But it is your quality culture ultimately that gives that level of trust, that level of credibility, and it demonstrates things like leadership, ownership, dedication and commitment, but also demonstrating you've got a quality system that provides that control around those boundaries and respected procedures. So, it is an all-encompassing part of your organisation. And as Ian rightly says, it's that heartbeat that really does filter out to every element and every part of the organisation. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay, your views.
Yeah, well, thanks, Shirish, for inviting me today. I think it's an important topic, and with the with the recent actions by FDA, I think it is important to realize that while data integrity or the issues show up, but what is the underlying current? I think, in my experience, while within FDA and now as a consultant, I think one of the key things that I observe that defines the culture is what is the management's messaging to their employees, how transparent and how open they are about the support, their support to their employees, and making sure that the messaging coming down is the patient first message. I think what Samantha mentioned about the trustworthiness, I think the trustworthiness of any data, when I inspected or when I evaluated, the trustworthiness kind of comes from how I see the people taking the pride and the ownership of their work and how they connect themselves with and their work to the life-saving drugs that they are providing to the patient. I think it's the commitment to quality and the accountability is the key in defining the culture. I think and it goes through the enabling of the capable resources. I mean, how do you enable your leadership to make those right decisions without the fear of any retribution? The communication I've seen in successful companies, the communication, top-down communication, is always about ensuring the importance of the work and taking pride in that. The internal stakeholder feedback, I mean, that defines a lot. I mean, how do you listen to your employees? Right? I look at that. I look at the collaboration, internal collaboration between the departments. Is there an openness into that? And how well everybody along the vertical understands the quality goals. What are our goals? So I think it's very important to understand when I'm assessing or when I look at those elements, those are intangible elements, but they provide a lot of insight into whether this company understands their role and whether their company understands what it takes to have that data integrity culture. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. I think one of the most important, trustworthiness and ensuring that confidence is gained through the trustworthiness is an important topic through the quality culture. Actually, I define it simply. These are on the road. If there are signals and if police is there, those who stop there, they are not quality culture. Anytime, whenever there is a police or no police, you stop the car that's real. So a simple example, that's not a great example, but still that's what we are looking at.
I think, Shirish, you brought up a great point, and I always equate it to whether you are doing the right thing when nobody is watching.
Nobody's watching.
Right?
Absolutely.
I think that's the key message. And the confidence in people's ability to point out the wrong, whether it is being done by their peers or their superiors. That confidence defines for me the culture that they live within.
Correct. Thank you. I think now I will turn to Amit. Amit, what's your view on this? You're able to hear me?
Yeah, I am able to hear you. So my views about this data integrity is that when nobody is watching, you do the right thing, which you have already told. But it has three elements. One is the policy, another is the people, and third is the technology. So if we see the policies, whatever the policies are to be made in the manufacturing plants or somewhere else, that needs to be trustworthy. And at the same time, if I see product quality plus document quality plus employee satisfaction, that is equivalent to quality culture. So that is how it moves. And then there are different ways it can be done, like LCOA and LCOA Plus, which is already there and it is practiced mostly in the industry. So these type of policies needs to be made. And then coming to the second point, that is the people. So when we talk about the people, it should be top driven. That when we say about the top driven, so what is the fear? Fear is that some batches can fail if the data is not good. So the top management must take account all those failures into their budgeting exercise. This much, these many things can go wrong, and at the same time, there should be a open culture of talking about these failures which are happening at the shop floor. Because if they are not uh, done, you can say, by the person, by it is a mistake or maybe some intentional view, but it is the attribute of the product which is not giving us the reliable data which is getting generated. It should be discussed openly by the top management. That should be encouraged. And if somebody is doing some thing on the shop floor which is related to data integrity, then that should be talked about. May not be the direct person, but the persons who are seeing this, they must take this point into the view of the management, that this is happening at the shop floor. So Gemba walk is one of the key pillars which helps there. And here the open culture where the seniors can go on the shop floor, discuss with the operator levels, analysts, chemists, and encourage them to bring up all the questions, and that fear will go. And at the same time, there should be no fear among the employees that if they report this, some strict action will be taken against them. And third, coming to technology, making few things foolproof. Like we have seen, SAP is one module, LIMS in another module, machine execution system is already there. Then we have a CFR 21 Part 11, which is already practiced at most of the cases. So whatever the elements are there, that all needs to be enabled when we do the qualification of the equipments or the instruments. So these are the few things which gives us some practical approach how we can make the data reliable and trustworthy. So that's what my view is.
Thank you, Amit. Now, lastly, I will come to Praveen.
Sure.
Anything?
Thank
We talk
you.
about the transfer.
Thank you. I think data integrity is an inherent part of the quality culture. It is a key indicator of effective and mature quality culture. And I think all of us have spoken about the commitment from management. I would go beyond that. In addition to the commitment, there has to be an engagement across the board, where there has to be clear message, reaching out to shop floor, taking the inputs from the shop floor and developing a system which is really a user-friendly one. In terms of the communication, it has to be open and transparent. And we talked about the trustworthiness of the data. If the communication is open and transparent, I believe the data would be definitely trustworthy. The way we handle our computer access controls, the way we handle our data integrity investigations, the way we do internal audits, also a reflection of the quality control in the context of data integrity. I think there was one point which MHRA has specifically emphasized in the guideline is about the commitment from a senior management. And that really sets the tone right in terms of how do we engage employees on this important topic. This good governance program definitely promotes a good culture of quality, and it also helps in reducing the risks to product, process, and compliance part of it. I would end up with a sentence from a WHO document that it mentions that you must demonstrate that you personally care about building a quality culture, and it applies to across the level of the organization. Thank you.
So I think how the management behaves on the shop floor, that gives the lesson to the people.
Absolutely.
So, that is very important, that how it is done. So, okay. I think few words we'll pick it up from there: transparency, trustworthiness, behavior of the people on the right thing. These are the few things which make the culture actually. That's what is happening. Next question is to the regulators actually. I think Ian is there. I would like to ask you a question. What are the current challenges faced by the regulators in ensuring data integrity across the pharmaceutical industry? And what is being done for this? Ian, did you hear me? Oh.
Yes, sorry, I was just on mute. Sorry. Yes, yeah, I guess yeah, it's a difficult time, I guess, for regulators in terms of one of the big challenges we've had is that we're in catch-up mode after the pandemic. So what we've done over the last few years is a lot of distant assessments, remote inspections, and the like. So I guess data integrity in itself, that there may be issues that we've become aware of in the future. The data integrity issues are maybe more difficult to find when you're doing things remotely. So I guess the point there is that kind of like if someone wants to beat the system, if they're doing this, if it's deliberate data integrity issues, if it's fraud, then that's going to be difficult to spot and hard to deal with from a remote assessment. So but what I guess so like the key kind of message that I would tell you is that, and I think you've all mentioned it in the previous discussion, was about if you get the right people, capable people, and they are properly trained, then the quality culture then will help eliminate the motives, the potential for data integrity issues, and that obviously leads on to using the technology. So the technology can help take away the opportunity for fraud and for data integrity issues. But it really is the quality culture that helps kind of minimize that motive and take away the motive for that. So I know that doesn't particularly deal with data integrity across the industry, but as I say, I think ownership of the quality culture is really for each company to own their quality culture, and let's hope that in doing so, in elevating that, in realizing the importance of the quality culture, building on all the good things that you've said about walking the talk, being visible, encouraging people to speak up, to relay their problems, actually watching and observing. It's not just the inspectors who should be watching and observing the operators at work, in practice. Watch and observe, understand what the problems are. If and I link that back to, if it's difficult to move something, that's going to pose safety issues. It's going to mean people are going to come up with workarounds, things that aren't written in the documents, so the records then don't reflect the activity. So I would encourage that kind of senior management and that organizational governance to really embed within the operations, which then deals with the data integrity issues. So I would encourage that for you to take that back within your companies.
Anybody else would like to add it to this? Please go ahead, Samantha, please.
Thank you. I think what Ian said is absolutely right, and it's very reflective of what we're seeing from the regulators. I guess my point is more about challenging the sector itself. It's more around how can the sector prepare themselves and get them in the right state, ready for the regulators. This isn't about an us and them. This is about collective responsibility, about compliance, and really ensuring we're all there. And there are plenty of tools out there which provide, for example, a baseline of where your data integrity maturity is. I mean, there's a data integrity maturity assessment, for example, at NSF do, and there are other companies that do the same. And QMM equally is another way to really assess and give a baseline of your quality culture. And again, it's something that is coming into play. There's more and more information coming out from the FDA in terms of this becoming a voluntary activity, that they're going to start to look for partners to potentially actually work through the quality maturity assessments to give them that confidence. So regulators are looking for industry and the sector to actually support them with this whole quest to really drive forward that quality culture, but also improve areas like data integrity, which may have just dropped back a little bit during COVID. So really something we should all be thinking about together.
Thank you, Samantha. Anybody else would like to add?
Yeah, I think, Shirish, one thing I want to highlight is recent problems. If you see FDA's warning letters for 483s, we don't see anything new, but we continuously think, why is it still happening, right? I mean, few of the things are obviously COVID made people accessibility challenging. And I always say this, that when cat is not around, mouse is gonna play, right? And if we get too comfortable with it, and we are taking our eyes off the prize, I think things are going to happen. So I think us getting a little more comfortable that we have implemented the electronic or the computerized tools, given the training, but again, we're not focusing on the core, that this can still happen and where our organization is. I also want to say that FDA in their pre-approval program recently added an objective 4, which is commitment to quality in pharmaceutical development. Now, one of the things as part of the commitment to quality, if you read the pre-approval program, they're talking about how well resourced it is, but at the same time, how the quality risk management is weaved into your overall quality program. And I think that is very important. While in FDA or now, what I see the key challenge is just when there is a turnover of people. I think it is very important to keep emphasizing and keep at the data integrity controls, because again, whether it's a new person or a seasoned person, the risk is yours if we take the price of the ball. So I think that's what I see whenever I'm talking to my clients. That's what I see. When we see some issues, it is more of that we got a little more relaxed than we should have been.
Good, Jay. I think now all of you probably talked about the technological advancement to ensure the data integrity. So I would like to actually my industry colleagues to elaborate it. How can you give the role of technology in promoting data integrity? If you can talk, Amit, that will be. Anybody hear me?
Yeah. So if we talk about technology, definitely it is going to be helpful. I can give you a few examples. Like in the initial days, we used to write this RH and temperature manually in the records. But now this data acquisition system has come and the operator has just to log in. It has sensors which are automatically there, and it keeps on recording this RH as well as temperature. After every 30 seconds, you can change the frequency, whatever you want. So the mistakes which maybe you can say intentional or non-intentional, where there is a lot of debate that it has gone beyond 25 degrees centigrade, or whether actually it was a, you can say, transcription error. So all those things have gone with this, and it really helps. So similar way, if we see like our FBDs, there also all the critical process parameters are there, and there are now historians also available which talks about that in which direction the batch is going, whether going forward after 3 to 4 hours the process parameters will be out of control or not, and what actions we need to initiate. So and at the same time in the lab, if we have seen a lot of you can say softwares which have come up like LAMS, SAP, they helped a lot. And many times there is a miss in the stability sample which is to be done. Now that miss is not there, an alarm comes, an SMS goes to the person, the QA manager is alert, an email comes, complete list is there. So all these things are helping, and going forward it is going to be more and more technology driven, and but human factor will remain there to some extent. So that is the help which we are getting from this technology. And now the new thing and also come is this electronic batch manufacturing records. Previously, it was not there. Now it helped a lot, and because it is integrated with the machines, all the parameters come, and in the last somebody can take a printout, and it can be attached or it can be stored electronically, and it is tamper evident. Nobody can tamper with that data, and you can store it for years together. Storage space is very less. So many problems which were there initially of handling the data, handling 300 pages of batch manufacturing records, test data sheets. Most of things are going away, and simple solutions are coming up. And at the same time, it helps in investigations also, that what went wrong at what time and who was the person who did that, and what sort of training needs to be done for that. So these are the a few things which has really helped from technology point of view to making the companies more data reliable and integral and trustworthy also.
Okay.
I think 300 pages of data, we expect to review it within 1 hour by the quality assurance and release the batch. So
Yeah.
those days have, now at least you are getting it in turn that you are getting what are the deviations happened in that batch. Electronically, you can see immediately and take the decision on this. So it has become very, it is different, but now I don't know what are the current problems in that area. If something goes wrong on the line, power changes or something happens, then also we can lose the data over there. So that's another issue will come after some time. So we have to find out how we can control it. Most of the cases we have.
So my request to the regulator is there are few challenges, and going forward, sometimes these are machines, some data is missing, which is transitory. So that needs to be seen with a you can say soft mind, that it is not basically intention is not there, but these are the machines. Sometimes data loss is there, so that needs to be taken care.
Maybe anything from your side on this?
I think as an industry, we have come a long way in terms of technology advancements in last around 15 to 20 years. And while the quality management system automation and equipment automation, we have walked through that journey. I think in current scenario, there are various aspects, various advancements which have come, which are definitely going to ensure the data assurance. I talk about few to start with the automated data capture mechanism. Like OCRs and barcode scannings, and these really help in terms of minimizing the manual effort. Data validation and verification, online validation and verification is also a significant step in that direction. The most important part in current scenario that while we have a lot of data coming up from automated systems, how do we ensure the data encryption and security measures? Technology is providing the robust mechanism by which the data will not be altered, tampered, or manipulated, and there are risks coming from internal as well as there are threats coming out from internal as well as external scenario. So this is going to be one advancement which we need to further work on and adapt to this technology. Data backup and disaster recovery is another phenomenon where the potential data breaches and system failures or natural disasters can be avoided. The key part where industry has really moved forward is about data analytics and monitoring. I think all of us are using data to predict certain scenarios, and we can identify trends, patterns, and anomalies, and that may have potential impact on the data assurance time. Real-time monitoring is also important from a technology advancement point of view. Artificial intelligence is a next generation technology, and that has got an immense scope in overall data management. At Sun, we are looking at artificial intelligence to be utilized as another layer, additional layer for digital data, and I'm focusing specifically on some of the QMS aspects like OS and audit program. So we have come a long way, but I believe the scenario in current situation is going forward with a lot of advancements than what we had earlier.
Yeah, actually, COVID period helped us to go into the digitalization more.
Yeah, we learned a lot during that period in terms of these advancements, for sure.
Yeah. because people were not available, something has to be done, then it's
Correct.
go to the some technological advances. And I think almost most of the at least big companies are going for the digitalization in the bigger way to avoid the problems of the data integrity as well as human errors, what is coming from the system. So I think that's a good thing which is happening. Can I go to the next question? And that is related to the regulatory bodies again. So I will again, these three people from this side, I will ask the question. What measures can be adopted by regulatory bodies to foster and cultivate a culture of quality and data integrity within pharmaceutical industry? It is both regulators and those who are practicing this, those both have to do it. But are there any specific instances there which can be forced? Jay, do you would like to speak?
Yeah, I can take a shot, and I'll definitely welcome Ian and Samantha's thoughts on this. When I was in FDA, we definitely understand the human nature.
Yeah.
Or as a consultant now, I definitely understand the human nature of this issue. And I also understand that one of the jobs of a regulator is a difficult job, that they have to balance the enforcement with the availability of the critical drugs to the patient, right? Ultimately, nobody benefits if drugs are not available to the patient. That's where the regulatory decision making kind of pivots, when the risk to the patient is higher, but at the same time, the issues themselves they are embedded so far in the system that it is driven not by the quality system or the lack of procedure, but it is driven by the culture or the people's intentions. That's when I think the regulators have to take a step in and see what can be done. To me, what as a consultant now, what I think would help the most is to the companies having those candid conversations and open conversations, because sometimes it is not clear to the company what the regulators are thinking. And having those candid and clear conversation and setting those expectations so that they can meet that, because again, a company might be guessing and trying to fix issues the way they think it is being perceived, and it may take them years while those critical drugs are not available to the patient. So I think it is in this particular case, I think a good collaboration between the industry and the regulator, and setting the right expectations upfront to make clear that what is expected. And again, ultimately, it benefits everybody. The company gets a clear path to where they need to be, and patients get the access to the medicine that they need.
Good. Yeah. Samantha, any comments on this, or you want to add something?
Yeah, please. I mean, that was a really good explanation, actually, and I fully agree with what's been said. I mean, supply of safe and effective medicines to the patients is absolutely the common purpose, the common goal. It's what we're all trying to achieve, and really there is something about that collective responsibility and accountability, and that collective or cooperative regulation, as it's now being called. You know, everyone has a role to play in terms of meeting that common purpose. And you know, there is a level of I guess discussion to be had about where that sits. So for industry, it's always been talked about, you know, where the responsibility lies and the accountability. There's been less conversation perhaps about what the regulator's role is above and beyond perhaps the compliance monitoring and the enforcement activities. I'm talking more about the relationship with industry and with stakeholders that are within that environment. So having, I guess, transparency, the accountabilities that are understood, and that clear governance, which sometimes all of those three can get a little grey or muddy. It's not always so clear. And I think there's something that Jay said a minute ago about having candid conversations, and that's exactly what I mean by that transparent relationship between the regulator and the sector. And I think there's probably one further point, just linking through to what we've been talking around culture, which is having an understanding not only of the organisational culture and how far they are along that quality culture maturity, but actually an understanding of geographical culture, because that plays quite a big part in different regions when it comes to how an organisation operates and some of the challenges that might be seen when they're being regulated or inspected or whatever by an inspectorate that's from elsewhere. So there are some challenges there that I think really need to be, perhaps, as you say, have a candid conversation about it to really see what can be done to really focus in on that common purpose of getting those safe and effective medicines to patients. Thanks.
Currently, FDA is promoting now quality culture maturity, quality maturity. That will be also part of this system, right? It will become quality culture and quality maturity, both will go hand in hand probably. And they have brought some way of checking. I don't know. Most of the people are still not clear, but I think that will be the next model to look forward. Yeah. We went from the quality matrices to the now quality maturity.
Yeah, I agree. Fully agree. They're looking at bringing in a common protocol to do their assessment, and you know the position and their current thinking is certainly one which will, like I said earlier, probably bring QMM in as something as a voluntary approach to begin with. But my question would be is how quickly does that become more of an expectation for organisations to gain regulatory kind of relief or less burden, however you wish to think?
I think we have completed 45 minutes. There are many questions, but I think one of the questions which I have before we ask people to ask questions is, are there any success stories or best practices in the data integrity implementation that you could share with us? And this is open for everybody, whoever has got a, probably. I have to name somebody, or there will be volunteers for this question. Please, Ian, we'll start with Ian.
This might be too early to be a success story, but it's an example of some of the work that we're doing at the MHRA, and to be transparent, this is really dealing with sites that are not compliant or have got a poor compliance status, and so we've started utilizing a compliance monitor system, so where someone independent of that organization will help support that organization to become compliant again. Because bear in mind what we've just said, this is all about having products available to patients, so that's the priority. And one of the recent examples, I mention it now because one of the recent examples is an organization that is having and has had data integrity issues. There are multiple issues. They're not just data integrity. That is affecting their ability now to supply products which are required for certainly patients within the UK and more widely. But one of the activities actually so they're bringing in some independent support. And one of the things that they're about to do is an organizational and cultural assessment of the operations. So I think that fits really nicely with what we're talking about today. And I think that is a reflection that maybe they can't self-diagnose what the problems are. So the problems we're seeing pervade across the organization. So they need someone else to come and help them understand what their issues are. So like I say, that's not necessarily a success story today. Hopefully it will be a success story next time we talk. But I think it just reflects that maybe we, when we look in the mirror, we see what we want to see. This is an example where they know that they've recognized that, and actually somebody else coming in, a fresh pair of eyes, have a look, root and branch, just assess their quality culture and help understand what the issues are. And like we say, if we get the culture right, the quality culture right, that will pervade down the organization, and the people will understand their GMP standards, will understand how they impact on the ability to supply products to the patients. That's just one example from MHRA, so I'll hand over back to you guys now.
Great. Anybody would like to add anything? Your own, yeah, please. Samantha, please go ahead.
Thank you. And just a quick comment on Ian's example. I think it's an excellent example. I mean, now working for NSF, I see a lot of companies that actually have gone through this process, and I think there's a level of reassurance about the compliance monitor, because as Ian says, it gives that sort of independent reassurance before they go back to the regulator, in a sense. So the regulator here in the MHRA in the UK, but also elsewhere, the US FDA and CDSCO, everyone is progressing in a really positive way, I think, in this area. But the example I just wanted to give was actually a client of ours who was actually under sort of compliance monitoring. Basically, we see this. I say we see this. I've seen this over the years, should I say, where we had torn data, torn up records in the bin. Ian will probably understand where I'm talking about. This is found during inspections from time to time. Now, the inspector identified it, and they indicated that they were going to increase the frequency of their inspections because of this and a number of other things. And I think what was nice in this instance, and where we were able to help, was to actually work with them on a data integrity maturity assessment, put in place a lot of actions for them to actually progress and improve their data integrity, but also embed data integrity into their cultural activities. And what happened from there was they went back to the regulator and explained what they were doing, and the regulator was very happy with the approach, really pleased with the progress, but also the roadmap, and they could see the baseline and the target that they were trying to achieve. The company themselves have suggested to us that it saved them probably in the region of £150,000 to £200,000 in labour, and also a number of regulatory inspections, so reduced burden overall. So there is something really important around understanding the cost of quality and the cost of poor quality, more importantly. And just as a final example, if I may, it was reported at one point that immature quality, the cost of that quality system being very immature, was around 25 to 40% of revenue. Whereas elsewhere, where you've got an optimized quality management system, a really mature and leading organization, then the cost of quality actually reduced to around 3 to 7% of revenue. So there is something about really working towards that. And as I say, that's a collective responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. If anybody else wants to add, otherwise I'm going to hand over this to Rajiv for asking the questions from the audience.
Yeah, Shirish, if I can just add,
Please.
Based on a experience or a client we are currently working with, and it's not a success story yet, but we firmly believe it will be. One of the things we realized that every time there's an issue, we solely focus on the process. And okay, well, update the SOP or create a new form or create a new workflow. We never looked at the people and the organizational elements that enable the success. And one of the things with this particular client we did was reassess the organizational structure and create a less cumbersome, if I can say it that way, more open structure where the responsibilities are not overburdensome, that the people lose the sight of their role. And at the same time, there is not too many verticals. And I think that helped really turn things around in terms of now the issues are being addressed quickly. Issues are coming up to the surface quickly. People are speaking up. They are more open to discuss. And I think we believe that tremendously accelerated their path to compliance. I think that opened our eyes that all the time we believe the solution is just, again, updating the SOP, creating a new form, creating a workflow. I think that's the part of the solution. The other part of the solution is understanding the organizational inertia and how that impacts the compliance. I think that's very important.
I think it's a good case study so that everybody can follow on those rules and what needs to be done. I think Rajiv is there. I think Nilanjana.
Yes.
You can get Rajiv for if there are any questions from the audience.
Yes, I can see questions. I am just looking for Dr. Desai. Yes, he's there.
Yeah,
Dr. Desai, will you take one or two questions from the audience?
So I just tried to look at the questions. There are a couple of them, but one or two questions we can definitely take over. And nice to see you all here. So much good discussion from the regulators and from the industry people. I think very insightful panel discussion. So there's one very interesting question coming up is which of the three, the policies, the procedures, or the culture can eliminate DI issues? Any one of you can answer this. Which of the three policies, procedures, or culture can eliminate, or I can add, minimize DI issues?
The DI issues.
I think all of them for sure. These three are very important aspects of the data assurance program. But I would say, doing the basics right across all the stages is definitely going to be important in maintaining the data assurance. So that is one thing which I definitely would like to emphasize upon. And the second thing is that wherever there is a weakness in terms of policies, procedures, or a culture, and if we identify that, and if we don't keep it isolated to that specific site or for that specific event, and expand it across the organization or across the gamut, I think that is going to be very helpful.
Maybe Jay or Amit or Sam or Ian. Anyone of you?
So what I can say that policies are something which is to be inbuilt into the system, that there is a zero tolerance policy for data integrity. And if somebody is bringing up something on the table, that needs to be encouraged. But at the same time, providing an infrastructure where top management needs to keep some capital expenditure for this automation and other things, that also needs to be done. So when we mix up all those things, then it gives rise to procedures. So these are the procedures which are based on the policies as well as the people who are there, and ultimately how to, because procedures are the things which are enforcement at the shop floor. We can say that this needs to be followed and what needs not to be followed and what steps are to be followed and how transcription errors needs to be handled. So that is the ultimate outcome, which is the, I can say, tier 3 documents which is available on the shop floor for helping.
So Amit, if I understand, do you say that the culture is the third priority in the three concerns? like policy, procedure, and culture. So if you have the procedures, if you have the infrastructure, that will take care of the data integrity issues, and culture is not so much concerned.
I think it should be reverse. Quality culture should be the top, and then everything will fall in the race actually.
Yeah. So quality
Documentation,
culture,
procedures, policies, everything will come into the if you have got a quality culture. That's
so these all things are interconnected actually.
interconnected. Yeah, absolutely.
So tomorrow, if we can say some mistakes are happening in the BMR at a specific pages, then how to come out of that? Somebody needs to provide that infrastructure. Let's go to the eBMR, and once eBMR is implemented, so then we can say that these procedures have come on the shop floor, which needs to be followed. So that is way. So all these are interconnected.
I think simplification of the procedure is also part of the quality culture.
Yeah.
That will really give you so that people don't make mistakes. Anybody else would like to add anything, please? Please, Samantha.
Thanks. I just wanted to comment really on how we try and change culture, because this is quite important. So if we have policies and procedures and things like that, strategies, HR reward strategies, or our strategic narrative of the organization, they all drive certain behaviors within an organization, which ultimately will drive your culture of the organization. So in order to have the right culture, which drives the right data integrity culture that you want in your organization, you have to have the right policies and procedures, the right strategies, the right, I guess, the golden star that you're aiming towards. And yes, you can set a policy that says we're going to have quality culture at the heart of what we do. It's going to be our objective. But if you then set, and I've seen this quite a lot, objectives or targets which are based on zero tolerance for human error, that drives the wrong behaviors to actually achieve that objective. Because a zero tolerance target tends to actually drive competitive behaviors. It drives the idea that if there is a human error, that it should be hidden potentially. And actually there's a tension there. A better target, for example, would be one that says we are going to reward people if they actually identify activities that reduce human error overall within our departments. And that way you're driving different behaviors and then the culture that you're wanting. So they're very much interlinked, as has been said. But I think it's about understanding what you have in place and then what the reality is and driving it forward appropriately.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. This question I'll ask to Jay. Jay, this is a very nice concept that somebody has laid down. Like we have a concept of quality by design. Can there be a system called as DI by design?
Well, I mean, yes and no. Definitely, I think there are tools now available. Automation is now available that takes some of those risks away from the areas where human nature or the human aspects can easily contribute to DI. So absolutely, I mean, those tools are going to be very important. I think Amit mentioned, Praveen mentioned some of those things, that taking advantage of the technology is going to be important. But the other element of DI by design, if that's the term being used, is again, I go back to the basic, are the people and the culture.
Yeah.
How do you design the culture? How do you empower the people? How do you make sure their ethics are integral, their moral compass is pointing in the right direction? Because again, I do see the challenge when I am now with the client that there cannot be a second eye watching over every analyst. There cannot be a second person watching over what the other person does. So how do we instill that culture? How do we empower them? How do we make sure they understand the cost of these quality issues? I think Samantha mentioned, like, I know one DI investigation, just a simple one, takes hundreds of hours. cost company thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, and the lost opportunity. I think that those messaging make people aware of those aspects, make them feel empowered about talking. So again, yes, can there be a DI by design? Yes, absolutely it can be, but it cannot only be a solution based on the technology, because that technology is going to gather the data for you, but technology is not going to make decisions for you. Who is going to make decisions for you are those people that are on the shop floor, and making them understand what these data are, what do they tell, and how does this wrong decision making impacts them. I mean, no question. I always tell my clients, no question is a stupid question. If somebody's asking you a question, don't shoot it down, because they are asking because they don't understand. They want to make the right decision. Give them the opportunity, give them the benefit of doubt. I think instilling those values in your operations will go a long way. So yeah, definitely it can be, but it has to be a solution. Process and people both needs to be part of that.
Thank you.
I think I'll ask the last question to Praveen and then followed by Ian. This is exactly what Jay you mentioned about the second check, and this is basically on the microbiology. Praveen, you can answer this. It's okay. So in the microbiology, there's not much of robust automation, especially in the colony counting methodology, and it's always been a manual observation. And just to make sure that things are in the right perspective, people tend to have a second level observation, but still there are some errors made in the colony counting, and where the exact colony formation units are not counted, and there are mistakes being found. How do we develop a system so that this should not be considered as a breach in data integrity? Praveen, you may answer this, and followed by Ian.
Sure. Yes, microbiology, from the nature of the activities and the data which we generate, is a lot of manual data and a lot of manual processes are there. Having said that, I think the industry is also working in terms of automation, specifically in the area of colony counter. I'm working with someone who is developing these colony counters as well. So that's going to be the way forward. However, having said that, it is important that we as an industry, and specifically microbiologists who are counting the colonies, do have a knowledge of what kind of colonies are coming up, the nature of colonies, and how to identify the various types of colonies. So again, the point which I was emphasizing on, that doing your basics right, that your SOPs and the processes which are designed needs to be very thorough in terms of interpreting the data. And if those pictorial diagrams and that discussion is there in the SOP, I'm very sure that there will not be any ambiguity in terms of interpreting the data. The secondary check, I think how many checks we can keep on adding in the processes, right? While there are systems, while there are processes where we are keeping the secondary check, but as long as that knowledge is there, as long as that expertise is there, I don't see much of an issue in terms of counting the colonies to the answer to that specific question.
Thank you.
Maybe
I think, Rajiv, we are quite delayed now. Almost.
The last, I'll just ask Ian to just wind up.
You had some questions still?
Yeah, just one
last question.
No, I think Ian can answer the same question if he has anything to add here.
Well, I'll kind of wrap it up, I guess, if this is the last question. We can spend an inordinate amount of money on technology. It will not fix all the problems. My examples from the EPL, so the English Premier League, and I'm a Liverpool fan who watched the football on Saturday, and that industry, that sector, they spend billions of pounds. It generates billions of pounds of revenue. They have technology now, which they know as VAR. There were still 2 operators on Saturday who watched and used the technology, who got the final outcome, the final decision wrong. So it doesn't matter how much money we spend, there are still people involved. People make mistakes. It is about how you deal with those mistakes, which is the quality culture. So individuals will make mistakes. We know that. Let's focus on employing the right people, supporting them, letting them understand that they have the capability to do the job, giving them the tools to do the job, which is the procedures and the technology to do it. But then let's support them when there are issues, when there are problems. And that is the quality culture that we need to set at an organizational level. Similarly, in terms of the inspectors, we can facilitate that. We understand that. Yes, we have to go in with a cynical hat, looking for problems, looking for fraud, looking for the issues. If you can convince us that you've done everything you can, you've invested in those people, you've supported them through the process, then that's the real discussions and the real value-added discussions we can have during an inspection. But the last thing we want is for an individual to be blamed and the outcome being we've dealt with that problem, that individual is no longer with this company. That does not resolve the issues. So let's build it up positively, and let's kind of recruit the right people and support the right people. So and do that within your quality culture.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you so much. Mr. Velapure, over to you.
I think we'll close this now because we are quite delayed now. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody. I think it was a great discussion and a lot of things have come out clearly.